Narcissists work hard to keep up their image, but behind the charm and confidence, there are secrets they'll never openly share. These hidden truths reveal their deepest fears, motivations, and the manipulative tactics they rely on. If you've ever felt confused around a narcissist, understanding these secrets will help you see the patterns clearly and protect your own peace. Secret number 1. Narcissists are not as confident as they appear. They project boldness and superiority, but underneath they're fragile. Their ego is built like glass, shiny on the outside, but quick to crack. They'll never admit it, but they constantly fear being exposed as less than. Their confidence is a mask, not a reflection of genuine self-esteem. They'll also never admit how much they depend on others. Independence is part of their image, but the truth is, they rely heavily on external validation. Compliments, attention, and reactions are like oxygen to them. Without these, their sense of self collapses. They'll never tell you how desperately they need people to fuel their fragile self-worth every single day. Narcissists will never admit they copy others. They pride themselves on being unique, but many of their behaviors, ideas, or even styles are borrowed from those around them. They're experts at observing and imitating. They'll take your strengths and wear them like their own. What looks like originality is often mimicry disguised as brilliance, and they guard that secret tightly. Another dirty secret is how much they fear abandonment. They may act like they don't need anyone, but being left terrifies them. It's their deepest wound. They'll do almost anything to avoid it, hoovering, guilt-tripping, or creating chaos. They'll never tell you this because admitting it would shatter their image of control. Their bravado hides a desperate fear of being alone. Narcissists will never reveal how envious they are. Jealousy eats at them constantly, even toward people they claim to care about. Your success, your happiness, even your friendships can spark envy, but they'll mask it with criticism, sarcasm, or backhanded compliments. They won't confess their jealousy because it would expose how much they measure themselves against others. Another secret is their constant need for control. They'll never openly say, "I want to dominate you," but that's exactly what drives them. From small conversations to major life decisions, they crave control. It makes them feel safe and powerful. They'll disguise it as being helpful or decisive, but behind it is the hidden agenda of keeping you beneath them. Narcissists will never admit they use people. They see relationships less as connections and more as transactions. What can you give them? Attention, money, status, admiration? They'll never confess this because it would expose the transactional way they view the world. Instead, they cloak it in charm, making it feel like love or friendship, when really it's exploitation. Another secret is their shame. Underneath the arrogance lies a deep sense of unworthiness. They'll never show it, because shame is their biggest vulnerability. Instead, they hide it behind anger, blame, or projection. Their outbursts often stem from this buried shame they work tirelessly to conceal. It's one of the most powerful secrets they'll never put into words. They'll also never tell you how often they lie. Lies are their language. From small exaggerations to massive fabrications, they twist the truth constantly. Lies protect their image, excuse their behavior, and control those around them. They'll never admit how habitual it is, because truth would reveal their fragility. For them, lying isn't a mistake, it's survival. Narcissists keep secret the fact that they're often empty inside. While they may seem lively and dramatic, their inner world can feel shallow and hollow. That's why they chase stimulation constantly. Attention, drama, or chaos fills the void. They'll never admit this emptiness because they rely on others believing in their energy and vitality to keep up appearances. Another secret: they crave admiration more than love. Love requires vulnerability, empathy, and reciprocity, which they struggle with. Admiration, however, is one-sided and safe. They'd rather be admired than loved, because admiration doesn't demand they change. They'll never tell you this truth, because it would reveal how shallow their version of connection really is. Narcissists also won't admit that they see emotions as weaknesses. When you cry, confess fears, or express love, they don't see depth, they see opportunity. Vulnerability becomes data they can use against you later. They'll never say this out loud, because it would reveal their manipulative lens. To them, emotions are not shared experiences, but tools for control. Another dirty secret is how much they fear exposure. They live terrified that someone will see through the mask and reveal their manipulations. That's why they discredit critics, isolate targets, and spin stories. Exposure is their nightmare. They'll never tell you this, but every effort to control the narrative is fueled by the deep fear of being unmasked. They'll never admit how quickly they get bored. Narcissists thrive on novelty. New partners, new jobs, new adventures. Stability feels suffocating to them. They chase stimulation like an addiction. This is why they discard people suddenly, even after claiming to love them. They'll never confess it because it would expose how little commitment they're capable of holding. Narcissists won't tell you how insecure they are about comparisons. Being measured against someone else terrifies them, because it risks exposing their flaws. That's why they belittle others or exaggerate their own greatness. They'll never admit that comparisons make them feel small. Their ego depends on being untouchable, so they guard this insecurity fiercely. Another secret is their dependency on chaos. While they may claim to want peace, they thrive in disorder. Drama distracts from their emptiness, and conflict keeps people focused on them. They'll never confess this because it would reveal how much they engineer problems intentionally. Chaos is their comfort zone, even if it destroys the relationships around them. They'll also never tell you how much they fear intimacy. True closeness requires honesty and vulnerability, which threaten their control. They may appear passionate in the beginning, but once the relationship deepens, fear sets in. They sabotage or withdraw to protect themselves. They'll never admit it, but intimacy feels dangerous because it exposes the parts they hide. Another secret is that they replay their failures in their head. Outwardly, they project perfection, but privately, mistakes haunt them. They'll never say it because admitting failure damages their image. Instead, they cover it with blame or rewriting history. Their denial hides the truth. Their mind often replays moments of shame, fueling the arrogance they wear like armor. Finally, narcissists will never tell you that they fear being forgotten. Being irrelevant is their greatest terror. Without someone to admire or fear them, they feel invisible. They crave legacy, reputation, and attention to avoid this nightmare. They'll never say it, but obscurity intimidates them more than anything. Your indifference is scarier to them than your anger. A hidden truth narcissists keep is that they measure relationships in terms of usefulness. If you provide admiration, resources, or status, you're valuable. If not, they lose interest quickly. They'll never admit this transactional view because it makes them look cold. But deep down, they view people like tools, and once a tool breaks, they simply replace it. They also won't tell you how much they study others. Narcissists are keen observers, always analyzing what makes people tick. They use this knowledge to charm, manipulate, or wound. They'll never admit this, because it would reveal how strategic their behavior is. While you may see spontaneity, they often plan carefully how to pull strings behind the scenes. Another secret is how they exaggerate their successes. Narcissists often inflate stories about their achievements to impress others. The truth may be much smaller, but they'll add layers of grandeur. They'll never confess this because their image depends on being seen as extraordinary. Admitting they lied or stretched the truth would shatter the illusion they protect. Narcissists also won't admit how addicted they are to admiration. Attention isn't just pleasant, it's necessary for their survival. Without it, they feel restless and insecure. They'll never say this out loud because it would reveal weakness. Instead, they act like admiration naturally flows to them, when in reality, they work tirelessly to keep it coming. They'll never admit how competitive they are in relationships. Narcissists don't just love you, they compete with you. Your wins can feel like their losses. They'll mask this with fake praise or playful teasing, but jealousy brews beneath. They won't tell you this, because it would expose how fragile their ego is. Secretly, they want to be above everyone. Another secret is how quickly they replace people. To outsiders, it looks like resilience or strength. But in truth, they discard relationships not because they're strong, but because they fear facing their own flaws. They'll never admit this cycle because it reveals emptiness. They prefer to look like they've moved on, when really they're running from themselves. Narcissists also keep secret how much they resent boundaries. They'll smile and say they respect your limits, but inside, they feel threatened. Boundaries remind them they can't fully control you. They'll never admit how much it bothers them, because it would reveal their need for dominance. Instead, they'll test limits subtly, hoping you don't notice the push. They'll never reveal how often they project. When they accuse you of being selfish, lazy, or untrustworthy, it's often a reflection of their own traits. Projection is their shield. They throw their flaws onto others to avoid accountability. They won't confess this, because projection protects their ego from facing the truth about who they really are. Another dirty secret is that they romanticize their own manipulations. Narcissists see gaslighting or guilt-tripping as clever strategies. They admire their ability to twist minds and control outcomes. They'll never admit this, because it would expose cruelty. But in their private thoughts, they sometimes feel proud of their ability to bend reality to their advantage. They'll also never tell you how terrified they are of being ordinary. To a narcissist, being average feels like failure. They crave uniqueness at all costs, chasing status, looks, or power to avoid blending in. They'll never confess this insecurity, because admitting it would expose how much of their life is built around running from mediocrity. Narcissists won't admit how much they rewrite history. They'll retell events in ways that favor them, forgetting or altering details. They'll never acknowledge this habit because it makes them look dishonest. But the truth is, they change stories to protect their ego and to keep others under their control. To them, memory is flexible if it keeps their image intact. They also won't confess how lonely they really feel. Narcissists surround themselves with people but rarely feel truly connected. Their inability to trust or be vulnerable keeps them isolated. They'll never admit this because it contradicts their confident persona. But behind the crowd of admirers, loneliness lingers like a shadow they can't escape. Another secret is their fear of aging. Narcissists often obsess over youth, beauty, and vitality. Aging feels like losing power because they fear being overlooked. They'll never say this because it reveals vulnerability. Instead, they'll chase trends, surgeries, or younger partners to mask the fear. Beneath the surface, growing older intimidates them more than they'll ever admit. They'll also never tell you how exhausting their act is. Constantly maintaining a perfect image, hiding flaws, and seeking admiration takes energy. They'll never admit this, because vulnerability isn't part of their persona. But behind closed doors, the act can feel draining. They hide it well, but their performance is as tiring for them as it is for those around them. Finally, narcissists won't admit that they envy authenticity. Deep down, they admire people who can be genuine, vulnerable, and loved for who they are. But they see it as unattainable for themselves. They'll never say it, because it would expose their deepest insecurity, that they don't know how to be real. So they hide behind masks, envying what they can't achieve. A narcissist will never admit how terrified they are of rejection. They act like rejection rolls off their back, but inside it feels like humiliation. Rejection confirms the very fears they try to hide, that they're not as special as they claim. They'll never confess this, so they cover it with arrogance or by quickly moving on to the next source of supply. They also won't tell you how much they study your weaknesses. From the start, narcissists watch closely to see what makes you insecure, what you crave, or what triggers you. They keep this knowledge hidden, using it only when it benefits them. They'll never admit this strategy because it reveals how calculated and manipulative they truly are. Another secret is how deeply they crave admiration from strangers over loved ones. To them, validation from people they barely know feels more powerful. Why? Because strangers don't see their flaws. They'll never admit this because it exposes how shallow their version of self-worth is. They often chase applause from outsiders while neglecting those closest to them. Narcissists also won't admit how much they rely on fantasy. They build mental stories where they're the hero, the winner, or the victim. These fantasies keep their fragile ego afloat. They'll never confess this because it would show how disconnected they are from reality. But in truth, they live in daydreams of greatness that hide their insecurities. They'll never reveal how often they fear being exposed by you. When you catch on to their patterns, they worry you might share it with others. That's why they try to discredit you, calling you crazy or dramatic. They'll never admit this fear, but their smear campaigns reveal the truth. Exposure is their biggest nightmare, and you threaten it. Another secret is that they sometimes admire the very people they try to tear down. When you shine with authenticity, empathy, or strength, they secretly envy it. But instead of admitting it, they attack. They'll never confess that their cruelty often comes from admiration twisted into jealousy. Their attempts to diminish you are really reflections of their envy. They won't admit how insecure they feel about love. Deep down, narcissists fear they're unlovable. That's why they cling to admiration instead. Love requires them to be seen fully, flaws and all, and that's something they can't handle. They'll never tell you this because their entire identity depends on convincing others they're worthy of endless attention. Narcissists also won't admit how much they hate silence. When you stop reacting, they feel powerless. Silence reminds them they don't control you anymore. They'll never say it, but silence is intimidating. That's why they provoke, hoover, or smear. It is all an attempt to break the quiet that exposes just how fragile their influence truly is. Another dirty secret is their paranoia. Narcissists often worry people are out to expose them, talk behind their backs, or secretly dislike them. They'll never confess this because it would reveal how insecure they really are. Instead, they mask it with bravado or aggression. But paranoia simmers constantly beneath their surface, keeping them restless and defensive. They'll never admit how calculated their love bombing really is. Those intense early stages of relationships aren't pure passion. They're strategy. They study what you need to hear, then flood you with it. They'll never confess this because it exposes the manipulation behind the romance. To them, love bombing is less about love and more about control. Narcissists also won't tell you how much they fear being outsmarted. Intelligence threatens them because it means someone could see through their games. They'll never admit this fear, so they cover it with arrogance or by belittling others. But deep down, they're intimidated by those who can't be fooled because it strips away their greatest weapon, deception. They'll also never reveal how empty their victories feel. Winning arguments, gaining admiration, or proving superiority gives them a rush, but it fades quickly. They're left needing more. They'll never confess this emptiness because it shows that their constant pursuit of validation is a cycle without satisfaction. Victories look big, but they never fill the void. Another secret is that they recycle tactics because they don't know any other way. Guilt trips, gaslighting, and triangulation get reused again and again. They'll never admit this lack of originality because it exposes how stuck they are in their patterns. Their behavior isn't creativity, it's repetition. They keep reusing the same tricks because they have nothing new. They also won't admit that deep down, they know people leave them. They act shocked or betrayed when it happens, but part of them expects it. Their behavior pushes people away, and though they'll never confess it, they know abandonment is the natural result. This fear drives much of their manipulation, even if they can't speak it aloud. In the end, the biggest dirty secret is this. Narcissists don't love themselves the way they want others to believe. Their entire identity is built on illusion, performance, and control. They'll never tell you this truth, but it explains everything. Their arrogance hides shame, their confidence hides fear, and their cruelty hides envy. Understanding these secrets is your key to freedom.